What's up, everybody? Paul here from the Hoops Crew, ready to break down our round 4 matchup against the Melbourne Football Club, where the Cats got it done in the end pretty comfortably to the tune of 39 points. Now, we're going to go through a whole lot when it comes to this game today. There's the final scores, the significant players, everyone who's kind of stepped up and delivered. Of course, the injury to Jack Henry. There's a whole range of different topics that we're going to discuss in this video today. But I guess that top level for me is I'm mostly pretty impressed. This was very much the team effort style of the game. Of course, there'll be a couple that when we're looking for 3-2-1s, and I've ultimately got to decide on a 3-2-1 for the Hoopies at the end of the year, there are a couple that stand above the crowd. But if I'm being perfectly honest, there's no real cellar dwellers. There's no one that really put in a genuinely poor performance on Friday night against the Dees, and that's really pleasing to see. So we're going to talk about all of that in this video today. But before we get to all of that, a word from our sponsor.
The Hoops Crew Media Network is proudly sponsored by Cyril Cook Florist. Visit them at shop 1211 Leather Street in Breakwater. Phone them on 035 222 2244 or visit their website at www.cyrilcookflorist.com.au and use the offer code GOCATS in the voucher field at checkout to get 20% off your next online purchase.
Thank you, Cyril Cook Florist, as always, for your ongoing support of the Hoops Crew and all we get up to. Now, let's get into the game itself a little bit here, where we can see the final scores. Geelong, 12-13-85, beating the Dees, 6-10-46. Some inaccuracy from a few key players at Melbourne, with both Fritsch and Pickett kicking 3 behinds each. That really obviously hurt their chances significantly. But honestly, outside of probably a 10-minute period where the D's kind of really connected a bit in the second quarter, they were never really in it. The Cats just didn't absolutely punish them like I felt like we could have and perhaps should have. Let's look at the worm here and talk about the story of the game, where, as I said, it kind of began pretty obviously, Christian Petrarca got the first goal, and then there was a bit of a procession from there. It was, kind of arm wrestling style, but Geelong really had the flow of the game. They just couldn't put it on the scoreboard. Those goals finally started to come, the first being from Paddy Dangerfield, Reece Stanley, then following up very shortly after, who did a fantastic job against Max Gawn, I might add. A lot of inaccuracy from the Cats at some of those early stages of the game where they really could have killed the contest. Gave Melbourne a chance. They eventually took some opportunities through that second half of the second quarter to get themselves back in it. But again, Geelong wrestled that momentum back through the third. What I was really impressed about when it comes to this game is that, and we've spoken about this quite a lot through rounds 1 to 3 up to this stage, Geelong has allowed teams to get on top for certain stages of the game, mostly in the third quarter, and have been unable to wrestle back the momentum. I think they did a pretty good job of that in this case. You can see this block of about 5 minutes where the D's kicked a couple back-to-back goals. We got one back from De Koning. They kicked 3-1, but then we really just kind of held them there. Despite the fact they had the flow of the game, our defensive wall was good. The way we intercepted was great. The likes of Zach Guthrie, hugely important in that mix. And the midfield didn't wilt like they have in the past. And I think that was hugely important. I think the way we used Patrick Dangerfield in this match, incredibly important in that as well. And then obviously from there, the third quarter, we really started to pull away. A lot of goals in the last quarter. What did we kick? 4 goals, 2 to 3 behinds in the final term to really extend that margin to an unassailable amount by the midpoint of the final quarter and cruised into the finish line. Let's talk about some team stats here before we get into some of the individual figures, where it really highlights kind of the dominance of Geelong on the night. We tend to not be a team who dominates possession, and yet we did. You can see the disposal count is enormous, especially as we get to the uncontested. That was a record for Geelong once we get to it. The kick count, handball count, all very high, inside 50s. The D's led it, but again, that wall was superb from Geelong. You'll see it once we get to the inside 50 efficiency, how badly that drops off for the D's. Our disposal efficiency was great. There's your difference. Your efficiency inside 50. Geelong shut them down at every turn. We made the disposal inside 50 really difficult for Melbourne for the most part. And yeah, we absolutely, we excelled going the other way. Free kicks, whatever. Again, you can just see every key metric is favourable for Geelong for the most part. You can see the hit-outs. I think that's actually a pretty good performance for Reece Stanley against someone like a Max Gawn. The clearance figures, great as well. With a midfield that's got Viney, Petrarca, Oliver, and a number of others that are kind of piling through them, really developing their game. These are some of the elite midfielders of the competition, including Max Gawn, who does a sensational job as a ruckman. I'm really happy with the clearance figures. Typical for Geelong that we kind of lose them at the centre, but win them around stoppage from that point. But I'm overall really quite pleased by that. Possession mirrors everything else that we've discussed so far. But there's your uncontested possession figure. Absolutely buried them around the ground, and it was a record for the Geelong Football Club. We've never had so many uncontested possessions in a game. We did so on Friday night. And again, overall for the match, we had the ball 50% of the time to 33%. It's overwhelming, and we really could have and should have won by more. There's your marks, 165 to 82. We doubled their count, and there was a little bit of chip mark, but also just a lot of free flowing play and some great, really great marks at different stages of the contested variety. We just put them to the sword, and kind of, I think we did what we did really well against Brisbane in the first half, where we went on angles, we kicked it sideways, we didn't just follow the tram tracks all the way through to goal, which worked well for us in the second half. And when we lost that, in the first half, and when we lost that in the second half, we went on to lose the game. We got that back. We rediscovered that against the Dees, and I'm really happy with the result there. And then of course you got your scoring, defensive play. Awesome that we led the tackles, considering we had the ball in our hands for 50% of the game. There's a lot of really pleasing figures here. And really highlights the dominance of the Cats on the night, even though Melbourne at different stages, got close-ish. All right, let's talk about some of the players, and this is where the whole team effort mentality really comes in. We'll filter this just to focus on the Cats. We'll look at the disposals, sort of that way. Zach Guthrie leading all comers with 30 disposals, as well as an incredible 17 marks, who really stepped up to the plate, of course, when Jack Henry went down. Jack Henry was leading the AFL 4 marks going into this game. He went down in the second quarter there, and Zach Guthrie thrived. Ryan got himself 10. If we look at the mark count, it's a really important figure here. O'Sullivan with 13. Lawson Humphries with 13. Tom Stewart with 11. Zach Guthrie obviously with the 17. All that top 4, all defenders. Sam De Koning obviously not far behind, but a bit shared between ruck and defence. There's Mark O'Connor as well, Oisin Mullen in defence. We really controlled the ball when Melbourne went forward, and it was fantastic to see. And then, we kind of took off from there. You notice again, there's far, the number of marks really drops when we're looking at other portions of the ground. It's because we did move the ball quicker. We took off, and it was a bit more ground ball at different stages, but we were incredibly clean given the conditions as well. It was really impressive to see. I'm really, really happy with that. But let's filter it back by disposals, because that gives us a clearer picture of who just had hands on. Bailey Smith, I would say, was a great had a great game, but not some sort of globe-trotting marquee sort of game. It was a good 28 disposal game, but not an excellent one. Graham Myers, similar sort of story, consistent throughout, but didn't necessarily set the world on fire. Ollie Dempsey was great. Tom Stewart, that's a very low-key 24. He just gradually accumulated those, and you didn't really notice. It wasn't some sort of blinding game, though he had some great intercept marks at different stages as well. Connor O'Sullivan continues to assert himself as a rising star, winning fancy. He's obviously won the nomination so far, but to win the overall thing, he is now currently the favourite off the back of this performance. I backed him before the odds really plunged. So, fingers crossed that Connor has a good result there. That'll be an extra $100 in the pocket. Lawson Humphries, again, the disposals matching the marks. A lot of those intercept plays from the defenders that then obviously resulted in possession from there too. So Jeremy Cameron working his way back into the game, kicked 1 goal too, so a little bit wayward, but got his hands on the ball a lot more, which is great after a few lean weeks. Patrick Dangerfield for mine, best on ground, both through the midfield and then forward. I really want to highlight the way that we approached the use of danger in this game. We have struggled in the midfield at different stages, getting those centre clearances. Geelong has kind of seemingly, in this match, used danger in both the forward and midfield roles almost simultaneously, where he goes into the middle for the centre bounce. Ideally, he wins that or has a hand in us winning that. But then, regardless of the result, that's when he goes surging forward. And it's almost as though there's someone from the half-forward line that comes streaming in to assist so that danger can retreat back to the forward line. It's a very clever play. It worked very well, where Danger was super effective as a midfielder and also had 6 shots on goal for the night, kicked 3 goals too from those 6 shots, with 1 dropping short because he sprayed it a bit. Sean Manor working his way back into it, especially in the second half, was quite good. A bit quiet early on, but it's his first game back, worked his way into it quite nicely, kicked a goal. Sam DeConing with one goal, did a great job against Max Gawn at different stages, but obviously mostly as a key defender. Brad Close is building. I think he really started to find a bit of touch. He'd been a little bit out of sorts. Jack Bowes has overcome, I think, those hiccups of the first couple of weeks. Max Holmes has still got a bit of work to do on how to manage the tag that he's receiving, but also really worked his way through it. So really important step in his development, the way he's working on these tags, because he's going to cop them for a long time for the rest of his career. He needs to know how to elude those players, how to use the contest and the ball to create some separation. You can see he's learning it bit by bit by bit, and this is going to take many weeks. We might see more games from Max where he doesn't necessarily light it up numbers-wise, but is effective in different ways, or later in the game where he really starts to exert his influence. And bear with him. That's going to take some time. Tom Atkins leading the competition for tackles was exceptional as well on the night. Lots of that defensive pressure. He's been huge so far this year. Mark O'Connor, a few of these players I've mentioned. I want to highlight Reece Stanley, who absolutely got the chocolates against Max Gawn once again. Floated forward to kick a goal early in the match, late in that first quarter, but really had a strong hand. There was probably only about a 5 to 10 minute block where, and I don't even know if Reece was on him for the entire time, where Max kind of got on top with a few big 20, 30 meter long punches straight out of the center contest. But otherwise, Reece had his measure for the majority of the day. And you can tell that Max Gawn's not 100% right now for a host of different reasons. But Reece Stanley absolutely had him covered for the night. Jack Henry, obviously injured with his hamstring, is unfortunate, but started the game incredibly strongly, continued exactly where he left off. Ollie Henry is perhaps the one for me that had a lean night, but did some good things at different stages, flew for some great contests, splitting the contest in the process. Even he was still pretty solid. Ted Closey building nicely. It's an exceptional 9 disposal game for a small who should get the ball more than he did. But I thought it was a really great 9 possession performance. Lots of immeasurables from him that will absolutely be appreciated by the team and the coaching department. Shannon Neal, we're still getting there. Could very easily have had 3 goals straight in the end, but kicked 1 goal. There was one that in the first quarter he launched from about 55 meters out. It was touched right on the line. He kicked, obviously, a fantastic goal in the final quarter and nearly had a Tom Hawkins-style one from the boundary, which was really impressive as well. Very, very close. I would still like to see Shannon Neal go from being a 7 disposal a game player to a 10 to 12. Nothing ridiculous, but just to get his hands on a bit more. And half of that battle will be won if he clunks everything that comes his way. He still fumbles a few from time to time. And also, to be fair, sometimes the disposal to him is pretty rough, either way too high, and he's having to reach up directly above his head, where it's quite difficult to hold on to it if there's bodies jostling you, or there's been a few worm burners at his ankles that have not been suitable either. So there's fault, I think, going both ways in this particular case. He'll continue to develop. Tyson Stengel didn't get the ball much, but kicked 2 goals, 1, and was pretty handy at different stages as well. So that is the game. Geelong getting up by 39 points. I don't know if it's the most convincing result in the world. As of when I record this, Gold Coast and Adelaide are going head-to-head right now, and both teams are looking pretty potent. It's going to be really interesting to tackle Adelaide at their home for Gather Round next week. I don't know if this effort necessarily convinces me that we'll get the win, but I think we'll be in it up to our eyeballs. We'll see how we go. Let me know what you think of Geelong versus Melbourne, round 4, 2025, where the Cats got it done by 39 points. Again, that's 12-13-85 to 6-10-46. I think it was a good performance overall, a really great team effort. What do we need to do to ensure that we can get the 4 points against Adelaide next week? Let me know in the comments. And as always, check out all the content that we're producing on the YouTube channel. I hosted post-game live immediately after the game. That went for well over 3 hours, and it was a wild ride, let me assure you. If you haven't checked out that video, it's absolutely worth checking out, especially the last hour or so, give or take. It was a time. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't. Like this video if you haven't already as well, so we get the word out there. More of what we're doing and more conversation, good, honest conversation about what the Cats are up to. Check us out on Patreon if you haven't either, where you can get 7 days of exclusive access to all that we do for 0 cost. Then after that, $5 or $6 a month gets you exclusive content, early access content, and extended content delivered to your email inbox. On socials, you'll find me at Paul James Games, The Hoops Crew, at The Hoops Crew. And until next time, remain Geelong strong. Go Cats. I'll see you later.